For more on the load shedding reprieve, we're joined by energy expert and Sinan Energy CEO, Mohamed Madhi. Good evening, Mohamed. So today we marked 13 consecutive days without load shedding, and Minister Ramokgopa has been quick to say it's due to their decisiveness on maintenance around December, which is now seeing several units coming back on stream. Your views on this reprieve?
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers. Look, I think we have to give credit where it's due. The minister and the team around him, and also some of the Eskom leadership, has certainly reduced the amount of load shedding that we've seen. We haven't had this kind of period of uninterrupted power supply for many months. So we have to applaud that, and I think it has been good work. I also think some of the initiatives that the minister was able to get cooperation around are commendable. However, we have to note that we are far from the end of load shedding. And even if we were at the end of load shedding, the important thing to realize is that assuming we ended load shedding, we would just be standing still. We would not be progressing. We would not have created the additional capacity that we need to spur growth in the country. And, talking about the end of load shedding, we can only confidently talk about the end of load shedding once we've added another 10 to 13,000 megawatts of power onto the grid. And unfortunately, we're a very long way from doing that.
And I suppose it speaks to what he also added, stating that Eskom is not the silver bullet for load shedding. You're going to have to expedite those engagements with independent power producers.
Exactly right. And look, I think, contrary to the statement that was made earlier by the minister, where they were looking at Eskom getting back to its glory days, I think that is the wrong approach. I think we have to look at South Africa getting back to a very stable grid. And you rightly point out, you need Eskom, but you also need these independent power producers. And very importantly, you need the right kind of tax incentives so that every business, every individual, every resident is able to take a certain degree of matter into their own hands and contribute to the solution by exploiting the incentives that need to be accelerated. And again, just to be clear about this, we do have very good incentives in this country. They have made a tremendous difference. We've added, a couple of thousand megawatts over the last 12 months from the private sector. That initiative needs to be applauded, needs to continue, and needs to be accelerated.
Yes, everything can be commended at this point, but how much of the reprieve or reduced load shedding can we attribute to many residents who have since switched to solar power in their homes?
I think the residential market doing that, that's always been a big trend, and it's continuing, fortunately. I think it hasn't contributed very significantly to the end of load shedding. What has contributed significantly, not the end, but to the reduced load shedding, is the commercial, and industrial sector implementing power plants on site. So your large manufacturing companies, your mines, your various sectors within the industry implementing very large renewable energy plants with battery energy storage. And battery energy storage has been the story of the last 12 months. In fact, it is what has allowed many companies to provide a more stable power supply for themselves, and also to mitigate against the intermittency of solar and wind in some cases. So the big trend that we're seeing is increased battery energy storage and the resultant more stability from renewable energy power sources.
So it's not just the efficacy of the Energy Action Plan, it's been somewhat of a collaborative effort, which includes ordinary citizens that have switched to solar.
It is citizens that have switched to solar, it's businesses, importantly, that have switched to solar. And very importantly, let's not forget, it's the incentives. Those incentives have helped a lot. So I think what we need to do going forward with regard to those incentives, unfortunately, there are many financial institutions who've exploited those incentives and almost, grabbed the profits resulting from those incentives. We now need to make sure that these incentives are properly distributed and not only for the benefit of financial institutions, banks, etc.
Now, just in closing, the minister in his address today also doubled down on their position to delay decommissioning of coal power stations, which they maintain is quite vital for energy security. Where do you stand on the decommissioning?
Look, I think we clearly cannot decommission power plants, coal-fired power plants right now. It would be virtually suicide. We have to have a very planned transition from these power plants to renewable energy sources. And in order to do that, we need a lot more focus and energy on bringing on these renewable energy sources with battery energy storage sooner rather than later. So that's where the focus must be, but we certainly cannot switch off coal-fired power plants without a backup in place.
All right. Mohamed, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's energy expert Mohamed Madhi speaking to us.